You're live. Let's see if this is working. Are we live? Folks, this is my first time. I don't know if this is working. Let's see.
This is hysterical. What do I need to do? Do I join the...
Hold on, Sam. I'm going to introduce you or something. Are we live? Let's see. Oh, we are live, but they cannot see us. Hold on. No.
This is hysterical. What do I need to do? Do I join the...
Hold on.
David, you're live. Please do not swear.
Okay. I know what's happening. We are live. Welcome. Okay, cool. Welcome, everybody. We are here with Samuel and David. We are from Pydantic, and we're going to start this live about PydanticAI. Welcome, everybody. Samuel, with you. Just say hi.
I'm just saying, I was checking we're live by going to YouTube, and then I was about to get the horrible cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
How do I wait? Sorry, I'm a total beginner here. Where do I go? Can you send the link?
No,
it's on the same place.
Don't go to the link, then it'll get the horrid feedback.
How do I see how do I see like chat and whatever?
Oh, you need to put it on your screen. I'm just. Is everybody here? Can someone say something on the hold on. Yeah. Can someone say something on the chat to just confirm that we're with people here, please?
Is there a way to tell how many people are in this? Marcelo, you're currently sharing your
No, I know. We are with a 10-15 seconds delay compared to what we have there.
So Michael has just messaged, so I think someone is here.
Yeah.
I think we're live.
Hello, world. Okay, cool. So, okay. I mean, at least we have someone loud plus clear. Amazing. So, I mean, what do you folks want to talk about?
No, that's the trickier part of this. Normally, when I do this, I'm on a podcast and someone else is in charge of coming up with the questions. And I thought I had the hard bit then, but now maybe the harder bit is working out what we're gonna ask about. I mean, I would like to start by putting Marcelo on the spot and asking him to talk about the MCP stuff that's going to land in PydanticAI when I finish the documentation, probably tomorrow at this point.
Okay, cool. Should we show them what MCP is before?
Yeah, maybe it'd be good to start off by giving a bit of a background on what MCP is, where it came from.
Right. So, people can see you on here. Amazing. So, MCP servers. It's a protocol that was created to kind of make the LLM interact with external tools, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's what we integrated with PydanticAI the last week. I mean, it's a main. And we're gonna release tomorrow?
Tomorrow, when I have finished improving the documentation, I think we've got an announcement about it coming up tomorrow. So yeah, it'll have to be tomorrow. Okay. So a bit of background. It originally was developed by Anthropic, in particular for use in their desktop client, so that you could it could go and connect to both call tools remotely, but also get resources, which is kind of equivalent to files, and prompts, which are kind of like templates for particular queries you might want to run. So it wasn't originally designed for the context of like the agents that we're building, which is why we're only using the tools component of it. But it gives a really powerful way of like allowing you to connect, for example, search to PydanticAI without having to go and like us implement that or you implement that in your application. You can just go ahead and basically say register this MCP server and you're off to the races.
Samuel, too much theory. How do we do that with PydanticAI?
So we have a new MCP server's keyword argument to agent, which I can in fact demonstrate here. I have what is going to be the documentation when I finished it, which I can walk you through.
Can you share your screen?
I can share my screen. I'm gonna go into.
I think we should show like just in cursor or something, like, that's one of the cool things too. It kind of gives you, I mean, start with the PydanticAI one, but since you're pulling it up.
I'll start.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what David meant is that the MCP server we created for Logfire, right?
Sure, but I think more generally just showing like, making it really concrete. Like it's not about using PydanticAI and it's not about, whatever. It's just a thing that you're, any sort of like AI integrated tool can make use of. Pydantic AI cursor, etc.
Can I put you on the spot, Marcelo? Can you share your cursor with an MCP server running, or is that not easy?
No, I mean it's easy. I have the cursor here. Can people see my screen? Is it good?
Not right now. I don't know. Can they? I'll.
I think you can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay. So hold on. I got something weird here. Okay. So what did you say I want to do? Integrate with an MCP server, right?
Yeah.
Actually,
Just show it in action.
Let's try MCP server that I have on. I have. Let's see. Settings. Cursor settings. Cursor settings. If you go to MCP, then you have it. Oh, hold on. Oh god, sorry. I just showed the read token, so we might need to revoke that token. So, I don't know how to. Let's search for an MCP server that I can use for Cursor.
Just to make your life more complicated, Marcelo, Daniel is saying that the volume is very low for him.
Daniel, the volume is very low. Let's see. It got better?
Daniel, is that for everyone or just Marcelo?
Maybe it got better with this.
I can hear you fine, so
same.
I don't know. But anyway, so MCP server. Maybe it's faster to even build one. Isn't it?
No. As in, we meant in cursor. I can show you code, but I think what David meant was like.
Can you just ask Logfire a question? Just ask it like, tell me what are the last 5 recent exceptions.
Oh yeah, I mean I just deleted the MCP server because I was using. I just showed the read token. That's why.
Well, yeah. I mean that's too bad.
Sorry. So anyway,
technical difficulties.
I mean, I can just show an MCP server and then run it here, like a random one. I just can create one pretty fast.
Okay.
Let's create an app that. What do we want?
Do you want to run the MCP server that I have been working on? Because that should work with one line of code.
That's what's the command?
It's almost like I'm going to send it to you in a minute when I have found the right command. Here we are, and I'm going to put it into the chat there. You just run that. If you have, I presume you have NPX. I know you don't like front end, but surely even you have NPX installed.
I think I have. What's it called? Python.
And just copy paste the command, no?
Right. But we need a name. Okay, so let's see.
Apparently you're still very quiet, Marcelo, but you sound fine to us, so I have no idea what's going on.
Marcelo,
just project, Marcelo. Talk very loudly. Scream into the microphone.
Oh, do you want command or do you want?
Wait, am I putting on the other side? Is it?
Oh, that sounded louder. That was better briefly. Now it's
right now.
It was louder and then it got normal.
Is it better, Daniel?
I think you ran it wrongly.
Did I put on the other side? Wait, I don't.
When you fiddled with the knob, it started really loud and then it got back to normal.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean,
anyway,
is it better now?
That's better. Maybe it's just because your face was close to the microphone.
Okay. I can't cope with this. It's not that. It's something to do with your mic setup because we can hear you fine.
Okay. There are some buttons here on the end.
Yeah, but it's not the problem with the mic, Marcelo, because we can hear you fine. So it's to do with how your audio is going through to YouTube.
I see. Okay.
We should have done a practice. Lesson learned.
Next time will be better. I think you should just talk loudly and keep going with what you're doing.
Marcelo, keep going. But the MCP server you set up is wrong because you've run it in. So MCP has 2 modes in which it can run.
Right.
SSE, which is server sent events, which is basically over HTTP, or what they call standard IO, which is for running it as a sub process where it will communicate over standard IO and standard out and standard in. So if you can edit it, the feed I have, Marcelo, of your screen is like 30 seconds delayed, which is making it hard to debug. Can you share your screen?
Wait, I mean, you need to see if I share my screen. Then is it okay to share my screen? Oh, yeah, it is. Right?
Yes. Okay, fine. Run that.
Hold on. Share my screen. Window entire screen. Share.
Yeah, I just
Can you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Try running that and see if it works.
No.
Yes, because you got the command wrong.
What did you do?
Oh God.
I changed to STDO.
Well, then it's not working. Try that and put SSE. I mean,
Yeah, but no, this doesn't work.
Can you just-
expect a URL?
Can you just run the command and then put in the localhost URL? Like run the command in your
That's a great
terminal. Yeah. SSE.
yep.
And then
Now it's running
localhost
on
3001.
Now you need to change the mode.
Let's see if this works. Okay.
Refresh.
No, it's not refreshing. SSE, localhost 31.
Looks like a cursor problem. SSE, yeah.
No.
Ah.
Wait, no.
It says cannot be constructed from URL that includes credentials.
Which doesn't. I mean,
I think yeah. I think do this. That seemed like it was misbehaving. That might have been.
Yeah, I think. Okay, SSE. Okay, and then.
moment of truth.
No resources available. Oh, it's got tools. Yeah. I think it should work.
It is
Okay,
working.
So tell it to run some code now. Like the point is now.
It's now running.
It
So,
has a tool.
yeah.
Yeah,
so it
yeah,
has
yeah.
a tool.
Okay, so let's go. What do you want?
It's normally easier than this. Just point that out for people in the chat.
But is it going to know to call that tool? Because this is a very
I think it
useful
will.
tool in the context of PydanticAI, but maybe a bit weird to cursor. Let's try.
Let's see. Oh,
Oh.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
And then you click run tool, and we better see a 3 here.
Daniel, is me yelling being
There we are.
helpful? Oh, it worked. So yeah, I mean, can we do something more useful to show how useful this thing is?
Ask it for example, how many days between 1st of January 2000 and like today, but maybe give it a date because I don't know if it has a way of getting today. Oh no, today. Just ask it and today.
Today, they don't know what today is.
Yes, it does.
March 18th.
No, but the tool will know what today is because it should be able to use date.today.
Oh, right.
Tell it to use Python to determine it, though.
Just try that.
I'll try it. We can edit it afterward. Just click send. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, what did he do?
Didn't even have to tell it to do that.
Go run the tool.
Define the start date.
Run the thing. Run the thing.
Run the thing. Oh, I know what Daniel is saying. Hold on, Daniel. Hold on. What is it? OBS. Oh, sorry, folks. I'm moving the OBS on the other screen. So, okay, so did it run? Is it still running?
Still says generate.
Says it's generating.
Did we hit a logging hang in the MCP implementation?
It's possible. Well, the cursor's one shouldn't have that bug. If we're
Should I cancel?
I wonder if the code has like, is it counting up the days or something? It seems to have gone wrong, but I would.
No, it seems all right, right?
Yeah.
Seems all right. So I don't know what's happened there, but I'm confident the problem is not with my code, which I know is what everyone says.
It did run. Wait, did it run?
No, it's still running. Anyway, okay. Well, epic fail. We'll be more prepared next time.
Well, maybe as an alternative, I could run that same server locally and show how you would connect.
If you can get it working, Samuel, I think it's worth showing. But I think the point is, ultimately, you can use these things in I mean, well, it's kind of unfortunate. We had a really cool experience of we wired it up so that it could run arbitrary requests against our observability database with Logfire, and we were able to like fix a bunch of bugs by just asking it like to find problems.
I'm gonna
pretty cool.
Share my. Can you see my screen here?
Yeah, we're seeing it.
So I'll run here that same server that I'm working on over the weekend to run Python code. I'll run it in SSE mode in this case. So it's running here, and then I'll come over here to some code. We'll ignore that little bit for now, which is instrumenting this with Logfire, which I'll show you. But yeah, we have our agent here, just a very standard agent. We're not giving it anything particularly special. I had instrument, which is related to the Logfire stuff. But we're defining the server that we're going to connect with using this MCP server for type imported from PydanticAI. And then the key bit here is that we need MCP run servers, which in this particular case is not necessarily the most accurate description of what's going on. Actually, in this particular case, we are effectively creating the HTTP connection to run the server, because as you just saw, I started the server in a separate process, because this is a SSE or HTTP one. So if I come out of here and I come and run the code, I'm just going to make my editor a little bit bigger. Where's Zoom? Here we are.
Bigger, it's Command plus.
Bigger. There we are. And if I run, what was my file called? Whatever it was called, run MCP SSE server, and you should see it hanging for a long time while it's going off and making that call. And in this case, it has returned successfully, I assume, the number of days. But one of the nice things about using a Python server like this is that we don't just have to hope that the model got the right thing. Because we can look at the code that was run, we can actually introspect whether it was correct. And that's where, in this particular case, Logfire comes in really useful. So all I'm going to do to that script I ran was to add import Logfire configure, and Logfire instrument PydanticAI. And with that alone, what we should see is it go off, and you see some logging here in the terminal because we have Logfire running. But like more importantly, if I open this particular call in Logfire, what you'll see, we get a nice view of what's happened within this particular tool call. But in particular, you see here we have running tool on Python code, and we can go and look at the code that got run and check whether or not it was correct. And even neater, we can come in here. And so in this particular case, we've made 2 calls to the LLM. So we did the first one where it decided, yep, I'm going to go off and make a tool call. So you can see the user just asked how many days. The LLM returned, make this tool call, and the code to run. And then the second one here, we have the full chain. So it got the retool result. So the way that I structure the output is in kind of XML-ish. So success, and then the number of days. And then it's able to like turn that into a nice sentence, giving the user a summary. Now, this particular case, perhaps not the most compelling, but like the next step that David and I have been talking about is the idea that we can actually allow this Python code to access Python functions defined on the host. So obviously the neat bit of where this Python code is being run is it's being run completely isolated within Pydantic, but we'll be able to, even there, pass it functions and therefore build agents that like code agents that are reasonably powerful. David, I think you had something to add.
Yeah, I want to just make a couple points. One, I mean, like high level. Okay, we just showed a fairly concrete example here after wrestling with this stuff for longer than we should have been. At high level, I think the interesting thing about MCP is that it's really like a tool. It's sort of like a protocol for exposing tools to agents. So like, you know, obviously we just showed it with PydanticAI, and Cursor like does work. We had a better example handy. But the critical thing is like, it's, you know, people are pumping these things out. If you look at, if you just search for like MCP server for like, you know, I looked yesterday for GitLab. or GitHub. You can find, there's like a giant list of these things, and you could just pull it up and run it, and it gives your AI a way to like interact with these things. And so in particular, like it's not PydanticAI specific, it's not Cursor specific. I mean, it seems to be getting a lot of traction, and it allows you to basically get these tools exposed to your agent or your, you know, framework, and like it'll work with any framework, and there'll be some standardized, you know, observability. I think a lot of this stuff is moving quickly, so observability, et cetera, is kind of work in progress. But yeah, I mean, you can see Samuel's screen here, just like listing out all the different things you can get for free. And this is like, you know, as somebody working on an AI framework, it's exciting because like we don't have to implement all these stuff. I think one of the things that, you know, LangChain and Crew AI and all these other things had going for them is like, you know, they had a whole community of people building tools. Well, guess what? Thanks to all this, like, you know, improving standardization, you basically get it for free doing the same thing that Samuel just showed. Instead of, you know, pointing at the, you know, Python code executor, you'd point at one of these.
Would it be, thanks, David. Would it be fun to try connecting one?
You can try one. I kind of wanted to reply. There's a question in the chat, which I thought was good, which is just basically like, I mean, you should look at it, Samuel, if you have it open in the corner here.
I'll tell you. Just look. So the question is, Michael, today I'll start building agentic system, and I am leaning towards PydanticAI. Is PydanticAI opinionated? In which case, if any, would I be better off building a system from scratch? Thanks in advance.
My opinion is that the best corollary for AI in general is the web. And the equivalent of this is that we're in like, God knows, let's say we're in like 2002 in web years. And if you went into Silicon Valley companies back then, or tech companies who were building, I'm very confident you will have found engineers who were writing Python, writing code, C++ or whatever it might have been, to parse HTTP headers directly when they were building web applications. And that was no doubt incredibly valuable for them, getting a like low-level understanding of how these protocols worked and how we were going to go and build web servers. And that was probably valuable when we had no idea what these web servers were going to look like, when Django didn't exist, when FastAPI didn't exist, when React didn't exist. But what do we do today? No one thinks it's a good use of your time to write the code that's required to parse HTTP headers. You go and use a web framework, whatever language you might be using, and that abstracts away all of that work, because everyone who's building needs to parse HTTP headers. There's no point in you doing it yourself. And so I am very confident that in a few years' time, we will reach a point where people don't think it makes sense to use the OpenAI SDK directly. And that's why OpenAI, for example, have released their Agents SDK. That is because they think that that is what their forward deployed engineers who they want to use that stuff, they need to be building with agent frameworks. And they probably think what you like about the different inference providers, they probably know more about these applications than anyone, and they think you need agent frameworks. Anthropic think it, OpenAI think it, Google think it. I think you'd be brave to say, no, I am such a special flower that I need to build from scratch on the SDK. You learn a lot from it. Absolutely, totally agree. There's value in doing it for your own development and understanding, but like the agentic loop that people are confident is the right way to build with right now, why not use a framework that's done that for you?
And I think that it's also like, look, sometimes you do want to send packets, you know, TCP packets over your socket, right? Sometimes you do want to make like a manual HTTP request. Today, you know, if you're using like something like Stripe, you're not going to, it's less common for people to make HTTP requests to the Stripe API. They'll just call the SDK functions directly. And I think the analogy there would be like the agent SDK or the agent frameworks are sort of like the higher level SDK, which is what you end up using most of the time, with the ability to sort of escape hatch out to the lower level, like manual API requests. And I think that's where a lot of this like agent framework stuff. So it's similar for like web apps. Like I don't accept like, you know, an HTTP request manually. I use like FastAPI, and it like does, you know, the dependency injection and things like that. I mean, different frameworks do that different ways, but you can see there's like more in the way of higher level abstractions. And I think the point is, so like the lower level stuff still gets used, but it remains. On that topic of like, you know, would I be better building a system from scratch. I mean, I think if what you mean by that is using the SDKs directly, I would say generally no. I think the biggest, today, different people, I mean, OpenAI has this like agent framework that I think, we actually, kind of, they were inspired in many ways by the contents of PydanticAI. Actually, you can see like the same class names, some of the same code snippets that were kind of copy pasted. Not all, and I think there like some things they've done with the ergonomics that I think that I appreciate, but like we didn't love, for example, the ability to integrate with OpenTelemetry, which I think has a lot of advantages. It becomes a little harder with their design. Ultimately, though, the point I want to make is like, we're all kind of aligned on what the end goal or what the developer experience should be. Where there's a difference, I think, is like OpenAI obviously is like hard coded against their own models, right? Like you can't use their SDK to have an interaction with like Anthropic's models. So if you want to, like Claude Code or Gemini or things like that, you can't, so easily swap if you use the OpenAI framework. And I think I have a hard time imagining a world where they start building a framework that is like cross-plat or cross-vendor in that way, other than obviously if other vendors expose an OpenAI compatible SDK, but they just released a new.
I think the other thing to add there is one. Yeah. I think that like bluntly, they took PydanticAI and adopted it to their own use case. They simplified a few things. They may think they've done some things more elegantly. We may agree on some points and disagree on others, but I also think it would be hard for them to deny that one of the reasons they did that was literally to rip out the agent agnosticism, so that their forward deployed engineers could build systems that no one could go along and replace with drop in Anthropic, which is obviously one of the powerful bits of PydanticAI is you can change model. The other thing that I think is worth saying is that lots of people have what they would say is OpenAI compatibility via OpenAI's chat completions API. Well, the other big announcement from OpenAI was their new responses API, which changes things again, and none of those companies are supporting yet. So if you want to use the responses API, you are limited to OpenAI.
Right. This new response API is a new API that OpenAI released last week.
Last week before.
Yeah, maybe. We have a question here. Are you good? Oh yeah, big fan of Samuel, the best dev of my era.
Gosh.
Thanks. Was it Fede Cardoso. He asks also, are you going to add support for documents splitters, embeddings like LangChain?
I think we would consider adding some of that functionality if there's enough demand for it. I promised that I was not going to be rude about any of the alternatives today.
Well,
so
let me jump in, because I think I can give a good description that's not rude, but also makes the point. I think philosophically, like one of the key differences actually between Pydantic and LangChain is I think we really want you to be doing like Pythonic code at the end of the day. Like I think LangChain, I having played with LangChain a little bit, and I mean, I am probably not the best person to speak on the topic, but ultimately I think LangChain has, they have this concept of a runnable and invoke, and they kind of try to like basically everything that you do is like controlled by LangChain. And there are probably some advantages to that, but at the end of the day, as like a Python developer, and as like a Python developer first, what I want is the framework to kind of get out of my way. Like I don't want it to own all of my. That's my opinion. Like some people might want the framework to do everything for them, but I like at the end of the day, I would rather write the code or have my like AI copilot be writing kind of more traditional Python code. And so I think stuff like the documents and splitters and et cetera, like this strikes me. A lot of those patterns strike me as things that you like. I don't need that to be in the framework. Now I might want tooling for that, but I'd be happy for that to either be my own code or a library code or similar. And I think the point is again, philosophically, what we're trying to achieve with PydanticAI is a framework that does the AI stuff and just makes it easy, like to do everything else yourself, like where it makes sense to. Now, embeddings is the obvious case in my mind where like, yeah, there really is like a tight coupling with the AI side of things. Just because it's so common to want to do like retrieval, like RAG stuff with vector embeddings, I feel like we probably will support embeddings in more of a first-class way at some point. But I think a lot of the like text processing, et cetera, I think we'll probably delegate to like third-party tools.
The last thing I'll add,
I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, look, I think that 15 years ago, people thought that you should build comprehensive applications and libraries that do everything, Django-esque, in the sense of like, we're going to come along and we're going to have opinions about the whole of your web framework, from your ORM to how you render HTML. Django's awesome. I've learned enormous amounts from it. I value it greatly, but like, it's not where people think we should be doing web development today. We think that we should be using something more like Fast API or Flask, where you can come along and give your own rendering or give your own ORM. And I think LangChain follows much more the like Django model of like, perhaps not with the engineering quality, but like the Django approach of like, we're going to do everything for you. And I suspect we won't end up there in the long term. I can, while David was talking, I have fiddled around and I have a search example using MCP that I would be interested to try. I have not run this yet. So
we'll come back to the questions in a second. There's a couple good ones.
If there's some questions following up to that, happy to take them first. Otherwise, I can try.
Why don't you get it? Are you ready to share it now? If you're ready now, I think do it now. But if you need a minute, I can answer.
No, I can try now. So I literally, I'll share my screen. I literally, for context of what I've done, I like scrolled down this list, found Search One API, literally noticed it because it had the word search in it. I have no idea what it is or how good it is. I copied and pasted their npx command here that they used to run it. I went and got the free API key you get with a balance of 100. So don't feel like seeing my API key is going to give you anything particularly valuable. And the next thing I did was I just tried to run that in the terminal to check it was working. So set the environment variable, run npx search one API MCP, seems to be running. All is good. Now, notice this says it's running a standard IO server. So as I said earlier, there were two transports for MCP over HTTP, which they currently call SSE for server certain events, and standard IO, which represents basically running the server generally as a sub-process and then communicating it with it over standard in and standard out. And so what I've done here is changed my code. I've commented out the old server that we were connecting, which was this one that was running our run Python code one, and I've substituted it for a standard IO server. Again, npx, the command, set the environment variable again here. Nothing else has changed. So when the key difference here is that instead of just creating an HTTP connection under the hood when I say run MCP servers, because this is basically a sub-process MCP server. I think sub-process would have been a better name than standard IO, but we are where we are. This will actually run the sub-process for the duration of this async context manager. And so if I change this to who is the creator of, the current main tech, I can't type at all, of
the LLM will understand.
Charlotte. Let's see what it comes back with. And as I say, I haven't run this before, so where am I? I'm getting back up here. I'm going to run that same example. No such directory. I know what I have to do at this point. It doesn't like the environment will have been overridden. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export that environment. I think we probably need to document this, Marcelo, that I suspect that setting that environment like kills everything else in your environment, and that's probably a mistake.
It says you couldn't find npx. I'm assuming that means
that would be because.
Okay.
Now it's saying that environment variable is required. Well, I thought I had set it.
Well, it might not be getting passed through.
Okay, so what I'll do instead is I'll say env equals dict os.environ env. You're going to work out for me, okay, and then I'll pass in the env here, and hopefully that works.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I haven't imported os.
But that makes sense. That makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah, it doesn't pass through. So going off and running.
So for those who didn't understand, this is oh.
So it worked, and even better, obviously, the reason that I had those mess ups was to actually they won't be shown here, but and you can see here in Logfire what happened. So we did the original call. We did the first. So it's done 2 searches. So the first search, current maintainer of Starlit, which got back something about Starlit here, bunch of details, yada yada yada. So it seems like it's returning text in the format of JSON format. Okay, that's fine. And then the second, it decided it needed to run. It then returned after that. It also wanted to run Starlit GitHub current maintainer. Okay, it thought it needed to run another search. Starlit GitHub current maintainer. And that came back with.
I think the key interesting point here is that, like, yeah, I mean, you didn't implement anything. You downloaded a file and just like ran it, and now we get that like search functionality in the agent.
Yeah. And I promise you, I haven't run that search before, as you can tell from the make it. But I was able to get search connected to PydanticAI with what in the end was 2 lines of code to configure it and 1 line of code to set it up and run it.
How many search do you have with that token that you got?
I had 100, and I have.
So I just want to interrupt. There's a really good question in the chat, Dustin Marshall. Like, not sure if you and I want to come back to the previous one, so you didn't get ignored. Not sure if you discussed yet, but if not, could you make the case for PydanticAI over OpenAI's agent SDK? Currently at a crossroads with app and want to make the best case for PydanticAI to boss. Okay, let me make a first statement here. 2 things. One, if you want vendor agnosticism, you don't want to use OpenAI. Like, you will have to use OpenAI stuff. So if like Anthropic puts out a smarter model for cheaper, or Google has a smarter model, whatever, all your code, you just change which model you're pointing, like where you define your agent, you just change the string that says which model to connect to, or maybe like slightly more complicated if you're doing advanced stuff. But the point is, you can just swap it out. If you use OpenAI agents SDK, you have to use OpenAI as your vendor. That makes sense for some people. It doesn't make sense for others. The other thing I want to point out, OpenAI has their new observability tooling. You can use it if you use their SDK. I think that our opinion is like they're basically building sort of a, they're building what their customers need and what they need to have in order to offer a solution that you don't need any other vendors. If you're prepared to have a vendor that isn't OpenAI, I think our opinion is there are better options out there. We're definitely biased as the builders of Logfire. We think Daniel's obviously shown it a few times. We think it's like one of the best tools out there for, kind of developing AI applications, not to mention monitoring them in production. And we're actively, working on it constantly. But the point is you have other options too. I mean, you're not stuck with Logfire for observability of your LLMs. You're not, but at the end of the day, if you start using like OpenAI's observability tooling, you're going to have a very hard time switching to something else. So like in general, I would say the strongest argument against OpenAI stuff is the vendor lock-in. I think there is a second argument, which is that OpenAI's SDK is, we've come at it from this philosophy of like, how can we make it possible to do like arbitrary and very powerful code? Now, today, you might argue our SDK is a little more complicated than it needs to be. I think that's something we want to improve. I also think, there was a previous question, which I answered more explicitly about like, are we going to keep making breaking changes? Like, spoiler alert, the answer is probably yes. Maybe not extreme breaking changes. But the point is like, OpenAI is like, yeah, I mean, they're probably more committed to not breaking things, given the scale. Well, maybe they aren't, but the point is, I think that their implementation is like in some ways purposely limited because they're trying to design it in a way that is like the best thing for building stuff with OpenAI APIs. not the best way of building like arbitrary, like, software systems that happen to make use of agents. And so, now to be clear, like this is a philosophical difference, and they might disagree with me on that point. But ultimately, I would say the reason that I would use Pydantic AI would be more because it's like, kind of going to be more adaptable.
I'd say something different. I could go through their application. Like, look, we've had some interaction with OpenAI. As I say, I don't think we don't need to point out how much of the code looks heavily inspired by Pydantic AI, because lots of other people have pointed that out. I would say go look at the profiles and the histories of the people who are maintaining it, and how much of the time, like is the code they wrote 6 years ago being used in production by millions of people. And I think that, like, whether it be like David's input on Fast API, whether it be Marcelo maintaining Starlet, a new vehicle, or like my work on Pydantic over the last 6 years, I think we have, as the three of us, but also more generally in the Pydantic team, a pretty strong track record of building open source libraries that last. And I don't think that, like, the people, for all my respect I have for OpenAI, who are doing the equivalent thing, have that kind of track record.
Also note, we're very responsive on Slack. If you want help debugging your app, even if it's not a bug in Pydantic AI, which does happen from time to time, you're welcome to pop on our Slack and ask for help. I think we try to answer most of the comments there. That might change if we get a massive influx, but so far it's been pretty manageable.
I think it's worth answering. I don't see it immediately, but I think it's worth answering the question about breaking changes. We are aware that we've made quite a few breaking changes. I hate doing it. We have suffered from it ourselves because we use Pydantic AI. We are trying to front load those breaking changes as much as possible so that we can stop making them. I think we plan, unlike some of the other agent frameworks, to go version 1 fairly soon. I'm aiming for this summer, bluntly, and then be very, very careful about breaking changes. But, like, we're going to front load breaking changes because we'd rather make them this week than next. And we'd rather make them next week than in the summer. But yeah, I think in the next few months, hopefully June, July, we will release version 1, and then we will be much more cautious about breaking changes. At the moment, we're going as fast as we can to, frankly, make the breaking changes so that we don't have to in the future.
And by the way, if people have feature requests and stuff like that, like, we also do listen to the community about a lot of that. Like, please, I mean, obviously, if there's anything you want to request now, go ahead in the chat, but like GitHub and Slack are great places to come with that too.
I have another question. How would the MCP work with the Lambda? For example, with a Fast API, since there is a dependency on running a separate process with npx, any plans for implementing the MCP protocol within Pydantic AI?
So Pydantic AI only relies upon the MCP PyPI package, so you can run MCP without having to have npx. It just happens that the two servers I've shown have been built in TypeScript and therefore are available via npx. The really exciting thing is, so at the moment, although we talk about these things as servers, they generally run locally, either, as I said, as a sub-process or as another process on the host. But the spec for authentication with MCP will be released fairly soon, I think, as in that they already have a draft. Once that is out, you'll be able to connect easily to remote MCP servers. So, for example, if you want Pydantic AI to be able to connect to Logfire and be able to query the database, you'll be able to do that without having to run a local server. You'll just do whatever it is, authentication or OAuth2 equivalent. You'll click yes, allow in the web interface, and now you'll be able to make those requests. And that presumably will apply to most of the other MCP servers. If you want to run specifically the MCP run Python, that requires Pydantic running inside Node, so that does require, like, the Node stack.
Right, and I mean, we now got rights to maintain also the Python SDK on MCP, so anything that they would do, we will know and we'll implement faster. So
no, we're relying on the MCP package, and we don't have any plans to change that. But
yeah, that's true.
We're happily contributing to it upstream. Yeah.
I think there's, like, another interesting thing. This is actually a pretty good example. So MCP is an Anthropic thing, and if you look, like, to my knowledge, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Samuel, but I haven't seen OpenAI. Like, I don't know that they even support MCP today. I Googled it, and what I found was somebody has a fork of the OpenAI agents Python repository where they've added MCP support, but it's not OpenAI that did this. And even if, look, maybe every MCP does end up getting more standardized. I mean, there's definitely a world where OpenAI goes a different route because they think different things matter.
I think it's, sorry to interrupt you, David. I think it's very clear that the route they've gone, right? As in, I have enormous respect for OpenAI and what they've done. Their models are amazing, but like they're taking the walled garden approach. So their Anthropic is betting on MCP, an open standard by which you can use other people's tools. OpenAI,
an open standard they created.
Fine, but it is an open standard, and you don't have to use their things. Whereas OpenAI is saying, go and use our search tool, similar to what I've just demonstrated, or our vector database search that run within OpenAI systems that are not open source, that are not available outside it. So they've made it pretty clear the direction they're taking. If that's what you want to use, then of course they're the leaders in doing that. But you can get the best of their model without having to like be in their walled garden.
And more generally, I think this will continue to be a thing. Like when new advances or new patterns emerge, like there's always going to be some pressure from the LLM vendors to like lock people into their stuff. And so I think that's like, like in particular, Anthropic releases something, another new feature that is, not, supported by OpenAI or is more weakly supported. Like basically, like there's going to be this tension between like, do we copy each other's APIs or do we, not? And I think that's the beauty of, in many ways of a vendor agnostic framework. And to be clear, PydanticAI isn't your only option. We are obviously biased and think it's the best option. But like the point is, if I want to put those as two sort of like opposite ends of the spectrum, your upshot of using something vendor agnostic is like you will be able to, maybe slower than if you had just picked the right vendor, but you will be able to get access to the APIs that, people are demanding without needing to, be dependent on a vendor supporting them.
Question. Other than just the base parsing of Pydantic models that Logfire offers for all Pydantic models, are there any special handling logic of PydanticAI's models in mind for Logfire?
No, so we kind of coming back to the previous question, for good or bad, we have like bet hard on trying to follow open standards. We believe that engineers are experienced enough and clever enough to choose the solution that uses open standards. So we accept that we have a risk of, because we're not locking people in. But PydanticAI's, not only do we emit open telemetry data, unlike some of the other agent frameworks, but we are now emitting open telemetry data that follows the OpenAI semantic conventions for Gen AI. And so as far as I know, we're the first agent framework that implements them to the extent that we do. They're still evolving. Like David and I in particular, and Alex from our team have been joining the Open Telemetry SIG, the special interest group, working on them and campaigning for some changes we think would be necessary. But like we're betting on open standards, and so the data that is being emitted from PydanticAI should work with any of the other AI observability platforms, or indeed non-AI observability platforms. They won't show it as nicely as Logfire, I think, today, but in theory, like we're relying on building good products, not on lock-in to gain and retain customers.
Boom.
And when you discover us like walking along the street with a towel around our neck, you'll discover that maybe it wasn't the best idea for business reasons, but we're committed to that approach. So we'll see what happens.
The beauty is like if you don't like Logfire, you can switch pretty easily to other providers. Even if you, to be clear, even if you keep using the Logfire SDK in your Python code, it is sending open standard, open telemetry format data. You can send it to Datadog. You can send it to, Arise or whatever else.
I have a question from before.
Yeah.
PydanticAI is from Rick. PydanticAI is great. No, wait, that's the... Oh, sorry, it's from Luis. Louis. Since to use is JSON, do you think defining the API of dependencies as JSON schemas would be a good way to ensure LLMs write correctly and avoid generating unrunnable code, stale training data?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question. maybe you can elaborate. I'll just say, in general, I mean, the tools are using JSON schemas to define the, to send the information to the models of what arguments are allowed, etc. I'll note there are some things that like Hugging Face and some other people have pioneered of using, like basically exposing tool calls more directly as code. And it's closely related to the stuff we were talking about earlier with the code agent MCP tool. So I think there's some benefits to running. I think some researchers have found that models can do a good job, or even in some cases a better job, by writing like something like Python code to call tools, as opposed to passing like a JSON object that matches some JSON schema. But
Louis wrote back to us.
Both options.
As in LLMs offer. Oh, it's hard to read from this distance.
No, I can read myself.
Thank you.
Louis saying,
see,
as in LLMs often generate code that is from an old training data, e.g. Pydantic v1 code, when getting generated for a long time. But I don't think in general that is problematic in terms of tool calling here, because they're generating against a JSON schema spec, and that JSON schema spec hasn't, that it'd be nice to think that like they're using JSON schema because Pydantic did, and everyone uses Pydantic, but JSON schema goes way beyond Pydantic. So, and it should be roughly the same JSON schema for Pydantic v1 and v2. So, I don't think that's such a problem. I also saw Lewis asking about how everyone has standardized on OpenAI's completions API, and perhaps related, perhaps not. OpenAI have now released their new responses API, which is what they're recommending for which is what's used by default in the Agents SDK, and I think they're recommending, and that's where they're putting the work in. And I can't possibly...
It's also these other providers, like, I don't know. I mean, I agree that most people have an easy way to translate into OpenAI format, but like not everyone. I mean, Anthropic has a subtly different API spec, and like, different, and it's like they're adding fields, they're adding multimodal in different ways. It's like, it's not all, they're like, there's a bunch of code in PydanticAI to deal with the fact that these APIs are subtly different. Yes, they are very similar. And I think OpenAI was an inspiration for that. But at the end of the day, when you have to write the code, it's like not so easy to just flip a switch and have a switch.
I was having a really interesting conversation with someone from Grok with a Q when I was an AI engineer, who was saying, because Grok, again, they have an OpenAI compatible API. But he was saying, but if you use that, you miss out not only on some stuff we have now, but some stuff that's coming soon. So, for example, the reasoning stuff, the think block that DeepSeek returns. Currently, they use like XML-ish format to put the think block, but like obviously that should be in a separate field, but they can't put it in a separate field because they're trying to follow OpenAI's API. And so, like, as other models introduce that reasoning, they're going to have to deviate from OpenAI, unless OpenAI happen to have all of the different fields, which isn't particularly in their interest. And I don't think they're going to be extending the chat completions API that much. Similarly, if you have reasoning around tool calls, there's nowhere to put that in OpenAI. So I would be surprised if everyone sticks to the completions API long term. Does PydanticAI have a good way to implement guardrails?
Before you answer that, the most recent comment, wait, there's another API. I moved all my code from completions to threads. Yeah, there is a third one. And I think that they were worried. They actually talked to us. I think they were worried that people were going to be upset about them kind of sunsetting or planning to sunset the threads API. I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but the point is, yeah, that's sorry, Daniel.
Hammer was asking about the guardrails. I think we need to have an API that like basically demonstrates it, or better examples. I think you could do it now reasonably well with iterating over an agent call, but like I think it's something we would like to add, if in no other reason than to explicitly be like, here's the link to Daniel's saying just switch to PydanticAI, and then you'll be safe from future. Not that we don't break our API right now, but we hope to stabilize soon. Yes, I think we should do better at least examples of guardrails, if not some code introductions. I think today,
the answer on guardrails is like you implement them yourself. I think it's not like it's not clear to me off the top of my head how painful it would be. It's definitely possible, but I think to Samuel's point, we'll probably add more of a convenience layer in the near future.
I think one other thing we dominated our response about OpenAI agents about the model agnosticism and the lock-in, but I think we're selling ourselves slightly short. I've put enormous amounts of work and took a bit of flack for making our tools system type safe and having dependencies that are implemented separately. And that doesn't exist in their SDK. I think they've made a deliberate decision to try and make it simpler. That's their decision, and fine. But I think that type safety matters more, and that we're prepared to introduce a bit at the expense of a bit more boilerplate and a bit more debugging what the hell's going on with Pyrite type safety. Because when you have really type safe systems, you can go that much faster. And there are other ones. I'm not going to sort of do a full-on list, but I think that'd be boring. But
Daniel just challenged us and said, "I'll switch to PydanticAI when we drop 0.10."
Okay. Tomorrow morning, Marcelo, we add
I think
MCP.
tomorrow morning is good. Yeah.
I think we'll give it a couple more weeks, but I actually think not that it means anything in semantic convention, semantic attribute. What's it called?
Yeah.
Semantic versions.
It's everything before 0 doesn't matter pretty much.
But I get that there's a philosophical moving to 0.1, and we'll do it soon.
Right. So we have.
I want to ask. Well, we have people here. I mean, one thing that I think in particular, if there's anything you'd want to see in the future on these calls, I'd be happy to sort of. I'm definitely interested in people's feedback on that. I would say though, one thing that's present in mind for us right now is we're spending a lot of time, we're building stuff, for our own use cases internally or otherwise, but I'm also curious of the sorts of examples people want to see. I mean, I know when I was getting started on some of using AI, even before, while PydanticAI was like a twinkle in Samuel's eye, I think the point is, it's useful to see these examples of, building something a little bit more complicated. I'm basically looking to the audience here a little bit for is there something that we could kind of demonstrate in a future one of these?
To summarize, we intend to do this more often. Once a week? Yeah.
I think I don't have any problem doing it once a week, and if people want to come, great. And if not, I think we'll advertise up front some of the stuff we want to cover.
But when we ask, David is asking pretty much is, what do you want to see here? Is it us talking about future features? Is it us building some kind of agentic application? What is it that people want to see?
And if there's a different format, if people want an office hours or something, we have options. I'll just point that out.
And also, do feel free to follow up with that on Slack or just create an issue for that matter.
100%.
It doesn't have to be here. I just thought while we're seeing if anyone responds with that, this is the roadmap that we produced. It was only a few weeks ago. It was before we went to America, wasn't it? So 12th of February, so a month ago, and we're already getting I think a long way through this. I mean, evals David has done enormous amounts of work on, and is we need to go through it a bit. I wouldn't say it's there, but we're getting close.
Next week.
Structured outputs. I think we know we need to do that, and we'll work on it soon. I think this stuff on OpenTelemetry is, I would say, for the most part done. I think Alex has marked it as closed. I mean, it's going to carry on, but just going through the other things on here. Tool sets, I think we've talked about MCP a great deal. I think MCP, we might introduce some other abstractions, but I'm not sure they're useful. I mean, browser control would be exciting and interesting thing to do. I think it's an enormous piece of work, and we're basically not sure if we're going to end up doing that. And I also suspect that there's a chance that someone else goes.
Anthropic data, it works. Somebody was using it with PydanticAI already.
Oh, interesting. Vector search and embeddings, I think we definitely need that API, and that would be worthwhile. I don't know why I'm assigned. I don't think I have to do that. Parallel node execution in graphs. I think we need to talk about that, but it would be awesome if we could do it, but complicated. But the point is, in theory, we're saying once we got through this, we would go to version 1. Now, maybe that's a bit optimistic, but I don't think, I'm really proud / pleased with how we've got through this list. Oh, prompt management's the other thing. It's more of a logfire feature, really. I think we could talk about it internally. I
we're
don't
kind
think we have
of
a decision yet, but
deprioritizing it.
we're not prioritizing it right now.
So
If anybody wants it, message us.
there is an interesting question here. I remember that PydanticAI was in beta. Is it now production ready?
Yes, people are using it in production. We're using it in production. I believe it is more the code quality is greater than lots of other things that are called production ready. So yes, I would say I would put it into production.
You'll want to pin the dependency version. Like we're not committed to not breaking changes yet.
You would want to use, I think that's probably the biggest downside. If you're using it in enormous applications, it might be problematic, but like you should be using UV anyway, so you get pinning out of the box anyway. If you look at packages when they have like a very stably increasing number of downloads, that is a very good indication of people using things in production, and they're basically increasing, like constantly increasing downloads, and that's what we have with PydanticAI. So I would be confident you wouldn't be the first person using it in production by a long way. That's all we have. We're at time. I'm about to be in trouble for not going and being more help with the family. So I think we are gonna call it a day roughly there. David or Marcelo, any like finishing thoughts?
Feel free to get on Slack and message us either for help or feature requests or anything else. You can find it by just going to, I think if you go anything related to pydantic.dev and look, you'll be able to find a Slack link pretty easily.
That's it, folks.
Thank you so much.
See you. How do I close this?